So this is all about telling your story one person at a time. Okay, so why do you think you should tell your story? Well, your story resonates with another person. They tell their story, and now you've got a connection. When you have done that, a liminal space is created between you, where you can safely share personal truths. A liminal space is somewhere which is neutral and relaxed. How can you encourage other people to share their stories? Well, it's simple. You ask for details. See, people don't like to talk about themselves. Surely. Well, actually, they do. It's a complete fallacy, they don't. But they don't think they want other people to hear it. Well, actually, people love talking about themselves. But because of our humility or reactions we've had in the past, we become very reluctant. Also, people get worried about showing too much in case they are made to feel vulnerable. So how wonderful for such a person to be told, do you know what? I want to hear your story. I want to know your story. Do you know what? I'm going to listen. Part of the joy of knowing other people is by actively listening to them and understanding their story. So don't be afraid to ask. Find out more. Okay, so don't push, but rather give permission. So when they share, they might go more vulnerable than they might have wanted to. And they put their hand to their mouth and go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. In which case, reassure them and find something of your own vulnerability that you can share with them. Perhaps even go slightly more vulnerable, something even more personal. But it becomes a balancing act. You've got to practice it, but after that it gets normal. So what does this mean in action? Well, in business we talk about branding. You might never have thought about this, but you actually have a personal brand. We all have one. The brand comes from the story that we have about ourselves and our values. As we tell our story, our attitudes and values emerge, and the person listening is able to see who we really are. Although branding is the business and marketing world, the way the big companies brand themselves start with the story and their values. Let me tell you about somebody called Jill. Just today we heard from Jill. She told us that yesterday she'd been in church 3 times, 3 services. Big person. But she'd said a testimony each of those times in those 3 services. 3 times she mentioned us. Why? Well, Jill and her family, I've changed the name by the way, first came to our attention through Christians Against Poverty. They were having a rough time, and her husband wasn't really enjoying life and was suffering from very severe, for want of a better word, dyslexia. And we just wanted to help them. Now, my personal branding is that I help everybody. One of the things I do is help people with dyslexia and dyslexia-related symptoms. So a big issue for people with dyslexia is problems with their memory. However, I have a skill that I've developed because of being a magician and helping me with my own problems in using memory techniques. So I teach these techniques to people who have dyslexia, and it really helps. And realise that they aren't silly, they just have to do things differently. A lot of people with memory problems think that they're stupid, but they're not. So I was able to help Jill's husband in the space of 10 minutes? He learned how he could memorise things. He learned he wasn't stupid. And the transformation started to take place as we prayed for him and the family. He's now in his 3rd year of doing a degree in archaeology, and his professor says he's the best archaeologist he's ever met. Amazing. How do we do it? Well, as a family, we just gathered round them. Now, there's another part of my brand. I believe in helping people one person at a time. Now, as churches, we often are trying to think of what is the greatest impact that we can have in an environment. But the story of the lost sheep and the lost penny and so on that Jesus talked about is that the angels in heaven celebrate when one person turns from an old life and turns towards God. So, shouldn't we be the same? What if instead of thinking of the greatest impact we can have, we thought of the individual the single person. I'll tell you another story. The story goes of after a severe storm, a young boy was walking down the beach, and there were thousands of starfish. He began throwing the starfish one at a time back into the sea. Now, coming in the other direction was a man who looked at the boy and said, "What are you doing?" I'm saving starfish," said the boy. "Surely you can't expect to make a difference to all the starfish," said the man. "That's true," said the boy, "but I can make a difference to this one." And with that, he threw another starfish back into the sea. Now, I believe in helping one person at a time. So what has all this got to do with Jill? Well, the impact of what we had done for Jill got told as a story yesterday, some 6 years after the event. The question is, what impact will her story have now on the people who heard it yesterday? And has she told this story in other places? I expect she has. What did we do? Well, we told our brand, our story, and it resonated with her. She is then able to tell that story, and so it goes, one person at a time. So you can see that telling your story and remembering that it's just one person at a time, naturally caring and listening for them and listening to them, will have a massive difference to their lives over and over again. And as they tell their story, yet more people will resonate with the story. You see, the thing is, the story that is part of our authenticity, our brand, is also the story of the gospel of Jesus and the good news. We can't separate the two. And as I tell the story, my story, I tell Jesus' story. As you tell your story related to Jesus, the people you speak to will see how Jesus resonates and fits with their life, and they will go on to do the same thing.